Pizza, pizza, pizza. If the 90s were about three pizza giants battling for dominance, 2025 is about 100 different players fighting over your dinner plate. Today, there are roughly 74,000 pizzerias in the US, and the industry is worth tens of billions, so pizza's not dying, it's mutating. From artisanal Neapolitan slices to TikTok-famous Detroit squares, the American pizza story has shifted far from red booths and arcade tokens. Yes, even frozen cauliflower crust. And to see how we got here, we need to start with the era when three chains ruled the pie. From pizza wars to pizza truce. In the 1990s, the American pizza landscape was dominated by three colossal names. Pizza Hut, Domino's, and Little Caesars weren't just restaurants. They were cultural landmarks, together accounting for nearly half of all pizza sales in the US. Each commanded its own corner of the market. Pizza Hut leaned into its sit-down, family dining appeal with red-roofed buildings, salad bars, and game rooms. Domino's positioned itself as the undisputed delivery king, promising piping hot pizza in 30 minutes or less. And Little Caesars cornered the value segment, attracting budget-conscious eaters with its 2-for-1 pizza deals and later its hot and ready offering. To choose pizza in the 90s was often to choose one of these three, and their rivalry defined what pizza meant for an entire decade. The competition wasn't subtle. Each chain worked tirelessly to outdo the others in size, speed, and spectacle. It wasn't enough to offer new toppings or slightly better prices. Marketing campaigns were staged like high-stakes battles. Pizza Hut rolled out oversized creations like the Bigfoot, promoted with enough flair to capture national headlines. The marketing era even went airborne once, literally. When a Pizza Hut blimp advertising its giant pie crashed in New York, a publicity stunt gone wrong that nonetheless symbolized the over-the-top energy of the period. Domino's bet on its 30-minute guarantee, making speed almost more important than the pizza itself. Little Caesars didn't attempt theatrics. Instead, it doubled down on volume and price, delivering two pizzas for what customers might spend on one elsewhere. The 90s weren't about subtlety. They were about who could make a bigger splash and a bigger pizza. For a while, this arms race worked. Families took kids to Pizza Hut birthday parties, Domino's drivers careened through suburbs, and bargain hunters left Little Caesars with boxes stacked high. The giants enjoyed national advertising budgets, broad recognition, and an aura of permanence. But like novelty fireworks, the spectacle started to fade as the decade rolled on. Once the excitement of a stuffed crust or an extra-long pie wore off, the food itself hadn't changed much. Pizzas merged with calzones, crust sprouted pockets of cheese or breadsticks, and toppings veered toward stunt food territory. Customers tried them once for the gimmick, but rarely came back out of loyalty. After waves of attention-grabbing experiments, many of these items quietly vanished from menus, leaving behind a sense that the chains were recycling ideas rather than inventing anything of lasting value. The cracks showed most clearly in the early 2000s. Domino's 30-minute guarantee, for instance, had once been its crown jewel. But the policy collided with reality in a series of lawsuits related to unsafe driving, including a high-profile case that carried a multi-million-dollar judgment. Between safety concerns and mounting legal pressure, Domino's backed away from the guarantee. Pizza Hut, once the restaurant-style operator, found itself straddling an awkward line between dine-in hangouts and takeout competition, never quite excelling at either. And Little Caesars remained the low-price option, but with no delivery and limited innovation, it struggled to expand its appeal beyond budget shoppers. The effect wasn't collapse, but exhaustion. The once fiery push to outdo each other slumped into uneventful rotations of coupons, discounts, and temporary new crust. Consumers, meanwhile, were changing. By the mid-2000s, families weren't as dazzled by more cheese or bigger slices. Lunch and dinner habits diversified with fast-casual burritos, coffeehouse culture, and sandwich shops offering quick service with fresher ingredients. Pizza chains still existed everywhere, but they started to feel predictable, even dated. Red-roofed Pizza Huts, once synonymous with weekend dinners, lost their charm in an era of Xboxes, replacing arcade machines and growing interest in healthier or customizable foods. Salad bars that had once looked abundant now looked uninspired. Even nostalgic cues like the checkered tablecloths or pizza-themed lamps seemed frozen in time rather than inviting. As this stagnation deepened, a quiet truce formed among the giants. None collapsed. These were still multi-billion-dollar companies with thousands of outlets nationwide, but their wars wound down into stability rather than conquest. Promotions became safer, less theatrical, and more routine. Without wild stunts to dominate pop culture, the Big Three became background fixtures in American life, dependable but uninspiring. Their ubiquity made them utilities, reliable for a weeknight dinner but rarely the source of excitement. By 2005, pizza wasn't the cultural event it had been in the 90s. It was just dinner, often chosen because it was there, not because it thrilled anyone. Yet this lull created space for others to step in. Independent pizzerias flourished in certain metro areas where food media and foodie culture rewarded craftsmanship and authenticity. Neapolitan-style places brought wood-fired ovens and minimalist toppings, showcasing a different philosophy, smaller, fresher, made-to-order. The big chains weren't structured to compete with that. They ran on bulk frozen dough, centralized supply chains, and nationwide uniformity. The difference between handcrafted pies in boutique settings and frozen then-baked pizzas from national brands underscored how far the culinary gap had grown. For the first time in decades, the Big Three looked less like the face of pizza innovation and more like placeholders. It's telling that Domino's was the first of the giants to confront this perception. Instead of doubling down on stunts, the company undertook a risky admission of weakness in 2009, acknowledging that customers thought its pizzas tasted like cardboard. It was a brutal marketing move, but also honest enough to open the door for reinvention. In the late 2000s, Domino's invested heavily in new recipes, digital ordering, and a distinctive technology brand identity. The Pizza Tracker, launched in 2008, turned the ordering process into real-time entertainment, letting customers watch progress updates on their deliveries. It was a clever way to make buying pizza feel interactive rather than routine. The combination of operational focus, improved recipes, and technology investment helped Domino's regain momentum. By 2018, Domino's had officially overtaken Pizza Hut in U.S. sales, a remarkable reversal that showed consumers would reward improvements in execution and convenience just as much as flavor. The broader lesson was clear. The old gimmicks had reached their limit. Americans no longer wanted bigger pizzas or quirkier crusts. They wanted better pizza, delivered more seamlessly, with control over how and when they ordered. Domino's proved there was still room for evolution, but its pivot away from novelty pies signaled the end of one era and the beginning of another. The foundation had been laid for entirely new models to emerge, built not on pizza stunts, but on customization, freshness, and fast service in a way that felt aligned with modern dining habits. That shift meant that by the 2010s, the definition of a pizza chain was ready to expand. The next wave wasn't going to fight over who could deliver a slightly bigger pepperoni slice. It was about to challenge the very format of how pizza was ordered, built, and eaten. The fast casual invasion. Then the 2010s brought fast casual pizza, assembly line customization, and blazing ovens. This was Pizza Hut nostalgia or Domino's delivery dominance. It was something adapted straight from Chipotle's playbook. Walk the line, pick every detail, and watch your food come together in minutes. Blaze Pizza, MOD Pizza, and Piology championed the model, letting customers build their ideal pie, fire it in ultra-hot ovens, and walk away with a fresh, personal pizza in less time than it used to take just to place a delivery phone call. Fast casual leaders scaled rapidly. MOD and Blaze grew into hundreds of locations and cracked into the hundreds of millions in annual sales. The appeal was straightforward. Instead of waiting half an hour for a delivery driver, a customer could assemble a pizza in full view and have it ready in under 10 minutes. The model placed speed and control at the center, a stark contrast to chains that had trained people to think of pizza as a dinner order requiring patience. And the pricing reinforced the shift. Where legacy players relied on coupons, bundles, and upgrades, Blaze and MOD introduced flat pricing. Customers could load as many toppings as they wanted, confident that the check wouldn't change. No calculation, no last-minute moment of hesitation, just a single all-in cost. For younger diners already accustomed to transparent burrito menus, the simplicity made sense. This model also connected with changing expectations brought on by the broader food industry. By the early 2010s, coffee buyers were personalizing every drink through apps, and fast casual lunch spots had normalized the idea of infinite customization. Pizza, so naturally adaptable to toppings and styles, had been left behind by the Big Three. Blaze and MOD filled that gap, showing that custom didn't have to mean slow or expensive. Instead of frozen dough cooked on conveyor belts miles from the customer's eye, these spots emphasized open kitchens, visible ingredients, and fresh stretched dough, even if much of the supply chain remained standardized behind the scenes. The look alone was enough to suggest quality. For a younger generation, the entire experience redefined what pizza felt like. The decor leaned toward bright, modern, and informal, without the heavy booths or dated lamps of 90s sit-downs. The scale fit differently too. While Domino's or Pizza Hut trained customers toward large pizzas designed for family dinners, fast casual brands leaned into personal-sized pies. A 10 to 12-inch pizza became the perfect lunch or solo dinner option, plugging pizza back into daily eating routines rather than just shared meals. That single adjustment allowed these chains to tap into the office lunch market, a segment where traditional delivery never fit neatly. Rapid expansion followed almost naturally. Blaze's early celebrity investors gave it name recognition beyond its modest first few locations, while MOD built steadily through suburban centers and college towns. The stores required far less space and infrastructure than sit-down restaurants, which made growth easier. They could move fast, serving thousands of customers from compact footprints without complex labor needs. Each new outlet reinforced the perception that pizza could finally be as quick as a sandwich and as customizable as a burrito bowl. Perception mattered just as much as convenience. For decades, national pizza had been treated as heavy, greasy comfort food, reliably filling but not exciting. Fast casual chains shifted that image. Seeing pizzas assembled fresh, not just opened from a box, gave a sense of craft that resonated with Millennials and Gen Z diners, whether or not the ingredients were truly farm fresh. The theater of the open line made it feel like an upgrade over soggy delivery boxing. That combination of freshness and choice worked as a subtle counter to years of discount-driven advertising from the big three. By the middle of the 2010s, the question hanging was simple. Why wait half an hour for a coupon pizza if you could walk into Blaze, pick exactly what you wanted, and eat it in less than 10 minutes? Even Domino's delivery tracker suddenly seemed less compelling when fast was being redefined right in front of the customer's eyes. For pizza chains rooted in either dine-in atmospheres or sprawling delivery fleets, this form of competition was new. It wasn't about who could offer two pizzas for one price. It was about flipping the entire dining frame. By 2020, the movement had proven it wasn't a small fad. Blaze, MOD, and Piology had spread to thousands of storefronts combined. They hadn't overtaken Domino's or Pizza Hut in pure sales, but they had changed the expectations of what pizza chains could look like and how they could operate. Pizza was no longer seen exclusively as a group dinner food. It had become a personal choice, customizable, fast, and woven into the broader culture of fast casual dining. Customers weren't asking if a chain offered coupons. They were asking what control they had over their own order. Fast casual didn't erase the old giants, but it reintroduced pizza as something adaptable to individual lives rather than locked into old models of family dinners or slow carryout. That redefinition shaped how everyone else in the industry had to respond. But fast casual didn't just steal lunch customers, it reshaped what good pizza looked like. And as expectations shifted, another upheaval was already forming, one that wasn't about toppings at all, but about who even got to deliver the box to your door. The delivery app domino effect. If there was one thing Domino's built its reputation on, it was mastery over delivery. Through the 1990s and 2000s, no other pizza brand could match its reach. Domino's delivery drivers covered the suburbs like clockwork. Its 30-minute guarantee became legendary, and the pizza tracker turned the ordering process into a digital event. For years, this model felt unbeatable. But in time, technology reframed the rules. A new wave of platforms replaced brand-specific delivery systems with a marketplace model, one where pizza competed directly with hamburgers, sushi, or tacos on a single screen. Domino's hadn't lost its ability to deliver, but the ground beneath it had shifted. The companies that made this possible, DoorDash, Uber Eats, and Grubhub, weren't built with pizza in mind. Their goal was broader: put any restaurant into a customer's pocket with a few taps. At first, pizza operators dismissed them. After all, delivery was pizza's territory and the product traveled well. But the shift was never about handling pizza, it was about placing every option in the same storefront. the app itself. Suddenly, family dinners were choosing not from Domino's menu, but from a scrolling list of cuisines. The advantage of running a dedicated fleet of drivers, long Domino's crown jewel, looked less distinctive next to a marketplace that offered everything at once. This wasn't the collapse of Domino's delivery engine. It remained one of the strongest logistics operations in food service. What changed was how customers accessed it. If thousands of restaurants share the same apps, the digital storefront becomes the true gatekeeper, whether or not a chain has drivers in every neighborhood. Pizza Today's 2025 industry survey backs that up. Online ordering and delivery platforms now account for a significant and growing share of operator revenue, with many businesses reporting more than 11% of sales flowing through third-party channels. For the younger restaurant crowd, delivery apps became the default, and pizza chains had to follow the traffic. The irony ran deep. For years, Domino's tracker was praised as cutting-edge, showing each step of the order's journey. But when Uber Eats and DoorDash offered similar updates for a range of cuisines, the uniqueness evaporated. To a new generation, Domino's wasn't the face of convenience anymore. It was just one option inside a broader food carousel. Logging into an app that could display sushi, ramen, and pizza in the same cart made Domino's proprietary tracker feel less like a marvel and more like a single-brand relic. Economics made this shift even more complicated. Domino's old system kept the entire chain of value in-house. Their own ingredients, employees, and cars meant most of the money stayed with the company. Third-party apps reversed that arrangement. Platforms typically charged commissions of 15–30% per order. That fee bought exposure to millions of app users, but it also sliced into already slim restaurant margin. Chains wrestled with the decision: protect their own ordering systems or join the apps and forfeit a cut of sales. In practice, refusal became nearly impossible. Without a presence on delivery apps, many brands risked disappearing from the way consumers actually searched for food. Some companies resisted. Domino's offered discounts for customers who ordered directly through its app and promoted loyalty rewards that only applied to in-house purchases. Pizza Hut rolled out platform-exclusive deals, but consumer behavior trended in one direction. People wanted one place where dinner decisions could be made quickly, and that central hub was the delivery app. Once inside the app environment, pizza chains looked like one more tile in a broad menu rather than the default choice for delivery. This trade-off extended beyond economics. For decades, pizza delivery carried strong symbolic branding: drivers in logoed uniforms, pizza boxes that displayed the chain's colors, branded cars parked outside homes. That presence reinforced the company's visibility at the neighborhood level. By contrast, app drivers were independent contractors cycling between multiple restaurants. Instead of a Domino's car pulling up, customers often saw a gray sedan dropping off several bags of mixed orders. Studies have found that this shift came with a measurable downside. Third-party deliveries often score lower on food temperature and satisfaction compared with orders handled by restaurant-employed drivers. The effect was subtle but important. Pizza lost part of its ritual, the warm, branded connection between restaurant and home, replaced by anonymous transactions delivered at scale. Still, app traffic was too big to ignore. Once pizza chains committed to them, order volume surged. Customers could add a pizza to their cart as easily as they added fries or a smoothie. For many small operators, it meant exposure they never could have afforded on their own. But the economic gains were uneven. Selling far more pizzas did not necessarily mean keeping more of the revenue. Many operators described the arrangement as paying rent to a tech company for access to customers they once reached directly. As long as apps ate into margins, growth came with a built-in cost. The pandemic years highlighted this dependency more than anything else. In 2020 and 2021, when millions were confined to their homes, delivery apps became lifelines. Orders spiked to unprecedented levels. Yet with that surge came heavy costs, as every percentage point in commissions translated to millions in revenue transferred upward to the platforms. Pizza volumes exploded, but chains themselves often pocketed less per slice. Apps had shifted roles from useful partners to critical gatekeepers, controlling customer relationships. By 2025, the numbers were decisive. Delivery apps accounted for more than half of chain pizza orders nationwide. Domino's, Pizza Hut, and Papa John's remained household names, but they no longer own their delivery systems outright. The market had been reshaped into a shared digital space where brand presence mattered less than visibility inside an app. Convenience for customers expanded dramatically. Dinner could be planned and delivered in minutes, across cuisines with just a swipe. The trade-off was that pizza chains lost their grip on both profits and presentation. That doesn't mean the food itself mattered less. If anything, the rise of apps flattened pizza into a category alongside dozens of others, forcing it to compete on price, labeling, and reviews like any other meal. The strength of the old delivery empires wasn't enough to shield them from the new rules of aggregation. Chains had to figure out how to stand out in lists of options rather than on a main street corner. And for many, this raised the question of whether pizza could remain as distinctive as it once was in American dining. But while delivery platforms changed how pizza reached the table, another battleground was quietly intensifying. Away from the apps and drivers, a different form of pizza was gaining new attention, not through storefronts or screens, but through supermarket aisles stacked with boxes customers could take home and bake themselves. Frozen pizza levels up. For decades, frozen pizza was treated like an afterthought, a quick fix that lived at the bottom of a crowded freezer. Brands like Totino's, Tombstone, and Red Baron were ubiquitous, stacked high in supermarkets, offering the same guarantee every time: cheap, fast, and good enough. These boxes were sold as survival food for broke students, midnight snacks, or families stretching a paycheck. Nobody was putting them in the same conversation with restaurant pies. They were utility more than cuisine. But the perception of frozen pizza would not stay frozen forever. Over the past few decades, subtle innovations and shifting habits have transformed it into something far more competitive. In fact, one of the first breakthroughs came long before today's gourmet freezer aisle. In 1995, DiGiorno introduced its famous rising crust pizza, complete with a bold marketing campaign declaring, "It's not delivery, it's DiGiorno." That line became a cultural reference point, and more importantly, it was the first time frozen pizza positioned itself as a direct rival to hot delivery. The crust puffed up in the oven, giving the illusion of freshness rather than the flat, cardboard-like bases people expected. It signaled that frozen could aspire higher than snack food, alongside other innovations like bagel bites or hot pockets, which shot pizza flavors into microwaves across America. It reshaped expectations. Could freezing technology really move pizza past backup dinner status? By the 2010s, the answer was starting to look more like yes. A new wave of branding appeared in the freezer aisle. California Pizza Kitchen brought its sit-down restaurant signature toppings, barbecue chicken, Thai flavors into the grocery store. Other companies leaned on claims like stone-fired or wood-fired, words once reserved for upmarket restaurants. Shoppers began to view certain frozen boxes the way they viewed frozen artisan bread or craft beer six-packs. Not trash food, but something closer to quality, if not equal. A rhetorical question began to take shape in households across America. Could a frozen pie replace a delivery order? And in many cases, convenience, cost, and growing quality made the answer yes. That transformation accelerated during the COVID lockdowns. When restaurants closed and families grew wary of delivery surcharges, frozen pizza quietly surged in status. Freezers weren't stocked with just one or two backup pies anymore. They were packed with unfamiliar labels, cauliflower crust offerings, and even plant-based toppings. Households experimented, discovering brands they'd never bought before. Suddenly, frozen pizza wasn't embarrassing. It was economical, comforting, and reliable during months when everything else, from toilet paper to fresh veggies, was running short. For millions of households, those months reset the hierarchy. Frozen pizza graduated from desperation meal to a primary option. Even before the pandemic, new diets had begun reshaping the category. Gluten-free alternatives that started as niche experiments gained permanent shelf space. Cauliflower crusts moved from boutique health stores to Walmart aisles. Keto-friendly doughs using almond or protein-based flour pushed into the mainstream. And alongside them, plant-based toppings grew just as fast. Beyond Meat and Impossible options slipped onto frozen pies as easily as they had onto burgers. This meant frozen pizza wasn't just meeting cravings, it was accommodating a whole spectrum of dietary trends. Where traditional chains hesitated to tinker with gluten-free equipment or vegan cheese risks, frozen brands had the space to test and sell these experiments at scale. Packaging amplified this modernization. The cheapest pizzas still came in plain boxes with discount fonts, but premium competitors leaned heavily on slick branding, craft fonts, sharper photography, claims of regional authenticity. The freezer aisle became a showroom of style as much as substance. Buying a pizza that promised a hand-stretched sourdough crust suddenly didn't feel like buying basic groceries. It felt aspirational, like bringing home a restaurant trend in miniature. Consumers posted grocery hauls online, showing off frozen pizzas alongside kombucha or specialty chips. Image mattered, and this was a sea change for a category once defined by whatever fits in the college mini fridge. The product itself also improved. Advances in flash freezing techniques solved the Achilles heel of crumbly or soggy crusts. Cheese blends froze and reheated more smoothly, bubbling instead of congealing. New oven instructions emphasized crispness, and alternative heating methods, air fryers, toaster ovens, gave buyers ways to elevate the results further. A frozen pie came much closer to resembling a takeout one, not identical, but close enough for the average family dinner. Quality narrowed the gap, economics widened it. Why pay $30 for a delivery order when a $7 or $8 frozen pizza could satisfy a similar craving? That cost-benefit equation hooked consumers long after pandemic panic orders subsided. The evolution wasn't only about health trends or nostalgia. It was also about variety. Regional styles, Detroit-style pans, Sicilian slabs, Roman rectangles, migrated into frozen aisles. Thick crusts with caramelized edges or layered cheese patterns were suddenly available in small towns that once had only pepperoni or sausage. Frozen categories became conduits for culinary tourism. Shoppers in suburban Ohio or rural Texas could casually experience New York thin crust or Midwestern tavern styles without a road trip. This access democratized what used to be geographically exclusive, and size mattered too. Where delivery chains stuck with large pies designed for sharing, frozen brands offered flexibility. Smaller, personal-sized pizzas made midweek lunches easier. 2 packs let couples enjoy different flavor combinations without a price premium. Families could mix and match. 1 cauliflower-based veggie pizza for the health-minded teen, 1 indulgent meat lovers for the parent, all baked on the same night. Frozen pizza became modular, a customizable dinner kit, not just a one-size-fits-all pie. Economics reinforced the shift. Grocery shopping already felt like an investment toward household stability. Adding frozen pizzas to the cart gave families the comfort of knowing dinner was solved without the uncertainty of delivery times, tips, or hidden fees. Pizza Today and Statista surveys highlight just how big the shift has grown. Frozen pizza now commands billions in retail sales annually, with industry leaders like DiGiorno and Red Baron among the top sellers nationwide. What once looked like a cheap substitute developed into one of the biggest segments of America's pizza economy. Companies responded by blurring the line between bargain and luxury even further. DiGiorno leaned into indulgent bakery-style crusts and layered toppings beyond pepperoni. Freshness pushed higher quality ingredients with stone-fired authenticity. Store brands launched gourmet knockoffs, offering fancy-styled pies for half the price of competitors. The competition made the frozen aisle one of the most dynamic areas of the supermarket. In this section of the grocery store, innovation moved just as fast as in restaurant kitchens. By 2025, the perception gap between frozen pizza and delivery had shrunk to its smallest point ever. For households on a budget, the logic was obvious. But even households that could afford delivery often stocked their freezers anyway. Frozen pizzas weren't backup, they were staple. They carried the flexibility of dietary choices, the savings of cooked-at-home ingredients, and the surprising satisfaction of quality improvement. Could a DiGiorno rising crust or a plant-based Detroit-style pan pizza rival a delivered pie? For many, the answer became yes. That shift leaves us with an ironic truth. The frozen aisle, once mocked as the lowest common denominator of pizza, has turned into one of the most compelling battlefields in modern food. It absorbs health trends, experiments with regional authenticity, and offers kitchen counter luxury at a fraction of the cost. The stigma has faded, replaced with curiosity and even enthusiasm. The freezer became a frontline in the pizza wars, quietly reshaping how Americans defined what pizza could be. And yet, the freezer aisle's rise didn't happen in isolation. It collided with another massive upheaval that reshaped the pizza business at the exact same time. a disruption so sudden it pushed pizza into both its greatest boom and one of its toughest reckoning. COVID-19, the pizza boom and bust. COVID made pizza both essential and unequal. Chain and frozen sales surged, but independent sit-down pizzerias struggled. When lockdowns began in early 2020, pizza's structure as a portable, affordable, and family-friendly meal made it a natural fit for quarantine life. Delivery adapted with speed, frozen pizzas filled carts in supermarkets, and together they created one of the food industry's most striking booms during the crisis. Yet that very success masked harsh divides. Major chains and frozen brands thrived, while many neighborhood pizzerias shuttered for good. The surge was immediate. Chains like Domino, Pizza Hut, and Papa John's didn't need to rebuild their business model when dining rooms closed, because off-premise orders were already their backbone. With simple adjustments like contactless drop-offs, they continued to move staggering volumes of food. Industry data collected at the time confirms this. Frozen pizza sales spiked by double digits, and delivery volumes soared as families relied on takeout several nights a week. These categories grew not just as a convenience, but as a defense against uncertainty. Pizza was predictable when so much else was. Supermarkets, too, turned into battle zones for frozen boxes. Freezer aisles were picked bare by anxious shoppers, and brands like DiGiorno and Red Baron hit record sales. Frozen pizza suddenly became central to weekly meal planning. Parents working at home found that heating one during a meeting break was easier than preparing full meals. College students sent back home-supplied siblings and parents with 2 or 3 boxes at a time. For millions, frozen pizza was no longer filler food. It became a household staple. National surveys after 2020 show that many of those buying patterns stuck, with frozen pies remaining a regular grocery item long after restrictions eased. But the same comfort that buoyed chains and frozen giants left small pizzerias with dine-in formats exposed. Independent restaurants built around atmosphere, brick ovens, communal tables, late-night service, struggled to rewire their operations overnight. Without fleets of drivers or partnerships with tech platforms, many could not move quickly enough to stay viable. Industry analysis shows that closures disproportionately hit small operators who lacked delivery infrastructure, eroding local dining cultures even as pizza consumption overall rose. Consumer behavior shifted at a scale that might have taken years under normal circumstances. Delivery apps like DoorDash and Uber Eats went from optional tools to default gateways. Families who once clipped coupons and phoned in weekly orders abandoned paper menus for digital feeds that consolidated every local option. Even when restaurants reopened, those app habits proved sticky. Surveys tracked in 2021 and 2022 confirmed that a large share of customers who adopted third-party apps during COVID continued to use them as their primary ordering method, despite restaurants preferring direct calls. Loyalty, once anchored to specific pizzerias, began to shift toward the convenience of platforms. Frozen pizza loyalty shifted too. Households discovered varieties they hadn't tried before: cauliflower crusts, regional Detroit pan pies, or plant-based toppings, and many never went back. Manufacturers quickly increased production and expanded offerings, turning pandemic discoveries into permanent product lines. By late 2021, premium frozen pizza was not a passing lockdown trend, but an established grocery category. Consumers who might have once dismissed frozen as second-rate came to rely on it alongside delivery for meals they could count on in uncertain times. Behind these numbers was an emotional current that carried just as much weight. Pizza functioned as comfort food during isolation. Families replaced birthdays and sporting events with pizza nights that maintained a sense of ritual when routines were fractured. Convenient slices helped reduce the stress of constant home cooking. And unlike elaborate home-baked projects that dominated social media feeds, pizza was indulgence without effort. It didn't break quarantine rules, required little preparation, and felt entirely normal at a moment when almost nothing else did. Still, that boom had a cost. Independent sit-down restaurants, many of them anchors of their communities, often closed permanently. Without the ability to scale into app-based delivery quickly or compete with frozen brands surging through supermarket distribution, their business models proved too rigid in the face of crisis. What the headlines celebrated, record chain profits, historic frozen aisle sales, was built upon an uneven outcome that hollowed out parts of the pizza economy. Looking forward from 2020, the consequences stayed locked in. Expectations for pizza shifted in ways that are unlikely to be reversed. Consumers learned to treat delivery apps as the default, and those platforms cemented their role in how food transactions take place. Frozen pizza gained legitimacy, with billions in retail sales and ongoing adoption across demographics. Chains strengthened their identities as logistics businesses more than restaurants. Meanwhile, sit-down pizzerias now struggled to portray themselves as essential, unless they added fresh angles that separated them from frozen and platform-driven convenience. The pandemic, in short, accelerated transitions that were already underway but might have taken another decade to fully mature. Delivery dominance pushed by apps solidified. Frozen pizza graduated from backup plan to mainstream. Chains deepened their strength, while independents that couldn't adapt thinned out. Instead of weakening the broader pizza industry, COVID clarified which models worked and which couldn't endure stress tests. By 2025, customers expected all pizza to be available digitally, quickly, and in multiple formats, from app-delivered boxes to freezer-ready meals. They no longer viewed dine-in pizza parlors as central to the culture. For consumers, the comfort food role of pizza stayed unshaken, but the business foundation had permanently changed. COVID forced both chains and shoppers to recalibrate in ways that proved lasting. The result was not just resilience, but reinvention. Pizza didn't just weather the pandemic, it emerged tied to new habits and new standards. Those shifts rippled outward, creating an opening for smaller players to find relevance again, not with delivery fleets or freezer cases, but with something the big chains couldn't copy: a renewed appetite for craft and distinct regional identity. Artisan and regional styles take over. Regional pizza styles, Detroit, Roman, Grandma, New Haven, went from local oddities to national trends. What once felt like insider knowledge for food tourists or hometown regulars is now standard fare in major cities across the U.S. by 2025. Pizza Today confirmed this shift, listing Detroit, New York, Sicilian, Grandma, and Roman as the top trending styles across independent operators. Styles that once lived in neighborhood bakeries, church basements, or regional dives now compete head-to-head with the long-standing big pies from national chains. Detroit style might be the clearest symbol of this revival. Baked in deep steel pans that once held auto parts, this thick, rectangular pizza gained recognition not for tradition alone, but for its striking look. Caramelized cheese lining the edges, pulling into sharp corners, and a crust that photographs in high definition. When Instagram culture demanded pizzas with drama, Detroit delivered the perfect image. The result was quick expansion from Michigan into cities like Lowe's, Angels, and Dallas, where steel pan pizzerias became hip destinations. What had been night shift fare in Detroit factories evolved into stylish food hall anchors and artisan shop menu leaders. Roman al taglio followed a different path. Served as long sheet pan slabs cut with scissors and sold by weight in Italy, it became popular in the US because it fit fast casual expectations without sacrificing novelty. Customers could pick different sections, compare toppings with friends, and share as if it were a tasting menu. Its straight, geometric format looked and felt different from circular pies, reinforcing the idea that pizza could still surprise. Food markets and urban bakeries adopted this style, marketing it as a balance between authenticity and convenience. The Grandma pie, once a homegrown Long Island pan recipe, also scaled fast. Its thin yet crunchy square base and simple tomato-forward toppings carried a reputation of rustic honesty. In a market where customers grew weary of overstuffed crust gimmicks, the understated approach became a strength. The homemade aesthetic was easy to brand as authentic cooking, a welcome contrast to factory-made uniform delivery rounds. These pies became shorthand for heritage in places far from New York, with independent shops leaning on nostalgia to claim tradition. Even for diners experiencing the style for the first time, the appeal wasn't just visual or structural, it was cultural. In an era of food culture defined by authenticity and narratives, these regional pizzas delivered exactly that. Detroit connected to work culture in post-war Michigan, Roman slices tied to European travel memories, and Grandma pies to Italian-American home kitchens. Customers might never have lived those histories, but ordering these styles felt like tasting heritage. Pizza moved from being a generic comfort food to a canvas for cultural storytelling. At the same time, operators leaned heavily on the artisan toolkit. Long fermentation times, naturally leavened dough, and wood-fired ovens became common talking points on menus. Even if customers didn't fully understand the details, phrases like heritage grains and 24-hour ferment reinforced the message that this was craft, not chain food. Just as craft beer and specialty coffee had trained audiences to value origin and process, artisan pizza proved customers wanted similar distinctions in their slices. The artisan framing also created distance from the industrial sameness of national chains, promising a more personal experience. Independent pizzerias in cities highlighted this strategy. Portland shops emphasized sourdough crusts charred in wood ovens. In Austin, Detroit squares were paired with toppings that reflected local barbecue culture. In Miami, bakeries turned grandma pies into corner store essentials. Each case illustrated how regional styles adapted to local tastes while still appearing distinct from the predictable choices of chain. Food tourism amplified the cycle, as traveling diners captured and shared posts of must-try local pizzerias, driving nationwide awareness of styles once unknown outside their regions of origin. The artistry spread into toppings and sauces as well. Vodka sauce bases, roasted pepper purees, and basil pestos joined classic tomato. Cheese blends stretched beyond mozzarella to incorporate pecorino, gorgonzola, or vegan cashew mixes. Toppings veered experimental, from clams to pickled vegetables to hot honey drizzles. These options reinforced the notion that artisan and regional pies were about breaking monotony. Refusing to center pepperoni or cheese wasn't a weakness. It was a sign of creative independence. By 2025, the impact could be measured. Research showed that nearly half of new independent pizzerias identified themselves as regional or craft-focused. They weren't all baking in wood-fired ovens or hand-mixing dough, but they understood the marketplace. To succeed, a pizza shop needed more than a generic menu. It needed a narrative tied to place, craft, or heritage. Without one, visibility dropped in a landscape where distinctions became selling points. That commercial consequence made style as important as flavor. For big chains, this created an obvious problem. Their scale and efficiency depended on uniformity, centralized dough preparation, conveyor belt ovens, and repeatable menus. Scaling something like naturally leavened dough or square steel pan pizza to thousands of outlets clashed with that model. Even when chains tried, the results often looked like imitations, stripped of the authenticity independents promoted. As a result, independents seized cultural status, framing themselves as the real innovators while chains continued competing on price, deals, and distribution. This difference captured the split reality of pizza by the mid-2020s. For mass appeal and volume, chains and frozen aisles still dominated. But for cultural capital, identity, credibility, and trendsetting, independents led. Their uptake of regional and artisan styles defined what was exciting about pizza, even if they didn't sell the overwhelming majority of pies. Customers chasing heritage, artistry, or novelty gravitated to their shops, knowing that chains couldn't replicate the experience authentically at scale. By spotlighting heritage styles while applying artisan techniques, independents put themselves at the forefront of pizza creativity. They took meaningful risks chains avoided and turned those risks into national conversations. And as new styles found audiences in unexpected places, it became clear that pizza was no longer bound by a uniform definition. What once seemed like fringe curiosities were now benchmarks for relevance in the industry. As these shifts spread widely, pizza's next experiment wasn't in the method of making dough or in the shape of pans. It was in rethinking whether business itself even existed and what it meant to order from a pizza place with no storefront at all. Ghost kitchens and food trucks. Ghost kitchens and food trucks emerged as two of the most striking developments in pizza during the 2020s. Both pushed the boundaries of what counted as a real pizzeria, yet they did so in opposite ways. Ghost kitchens made pizza more invisible than ever, while food trucks made it more visible than it had been in decades. Ghost kitchens are delivery-only operations that can run multiple virtual brands from a single kitchen, with no public storefront and no signage. Customers discover them only through delivery apps, where they appear in the same feed as established restaurants. A single industrial kitchen might house 4 or 5 different pizza brands, each designed to target slightly different audiences, yet all made by the same staff with the same oven. This model surged during the pandemic, when demand for delivery skyrocketed, and many restaurants needed new ways to reach customers without running dining rooms. The most infamous example came in 2020 with Chuck E. Cheese. When the children's arcade chain saw its party business vanish overnight, it quietly launched a delivery-only brand called Pasquale's, pushing it through apps under an unfamiliar name. Customers later realized their new discovery was pizzas baked in the same kitchens as the animatronic mouse. It became a small cultural flashpoint, showing how easily legacy chains could rebrand themselves digitally. To some, it felt like a clever experiment. To others, it looked like a bait-and switch. But it highlighted the ghost kitchen's central appeal. Brands could appear overnight in delivery apps without the heavy cost of building or remodeling a store. For operators, ghost kitchens offered efficiency and scale. A single setup allowed them to saturate apps with multiple identities. One menu could emphasize extra cheesy indulgence, another could stress vegan or health-conscious toppings, and a third could push ultra-low prices. To the consumer, they looked like distinct businesses. To the kitchen staff, they were just parallel orders filling the same oven racks. Pizza Today estimated that by the mid-2020s, ghost kitchens accounted for close to a tenth of pizza delivery sales in major metro regions, a remarkable share for a model that barely existed a decade earlier. For the pizza economy, ghost kitchens blurred one of its longest-standing distinctions: the separation between recognizable storefronts and anonymous industrial facilities. Brands became less about the dining room or the local reputation, and more about appearing in search results at the right time. On the other end of the visibility spectrum were pizza food trucks. Where ghost kitchens hid everything, trucks showcased everything. These mobile units grew throughout the 2010s and 2020s, often operated by chefs who wanted to experiment with regional styles without committing to a large restaurant. In a parking lot or at a farmer's market, a wood-fired oven inside a truck could crank out New Haven-style thin crusts or Detroit-style squares complete with caramelized edges. Trucks became moving classrooms for regional pizza styles, teaching new audiences what those pies looked and tasted like without requiring years of slow expansion. The cultural impact was as strong as the culinary one. Part of the thrill of a pizza truck came from its scarcity. If a truck only showed up on Friday nights at a local brewery, fans lined up while they had the chance. The experience felt participatory. Customers saw the ovens, smelled the smoke, and watched slices come together before their eyes. Trucks projected credibility through presence. In contrast to ghost kitchens, which asked customers to trust unseen hands, trucks invited them to witness the craft in action. Some even leaned into playful ideas, like the pizza boat that operated in tourist waters, selling pies directly to people relaxing on docks or swimming near shorelines. These vehicles reminded customers that pizza could still be playful, personal, and public. Food trucks also served as incubators for styles that later grew into permanent shops. An artisan grandma pie truck in one city might generate enough buzz to open a sit-down location the following year, using its street reputation as proof of concept. Trucks shared space with breweries, coexisted with farmers' markets, and anchored music or food festivals, making them embedded symbols of community and innovation. They didn't replace pizzerias, but they influenced public taste in outsized ways. Comparing the two models captures a core tension in the 2020s pizza economy. Ghost kitchens scaled convenience, offering boundless choice while remaining invisible. Food trucks built community, spreading trends through visibility and trust. One existed only in the digital realm, hiding labor and space behind menus and logos. The other was as public as possible, ovens blazing on sidewalks and slices served by hand. Both reshaped pizza's reach, and both responded to changes in consumer expectations. Some wanted frictionless ordering at midnight without ever thinking about who made their pizza. Others wanted to stand in a lot with music, beer, and a smoky oven, eating slices that felt tied to a place. For the industry, the lesson was clear. Pizza no longer needed permanent walls to succeed. Whether through warehouses that sent out thousands of anonymous app orders or trucks that offered a handful of pies in a parking lot, pizza found relevance in spaces far removed from its chain-dominated past. The lasting impact of these models wasn't about technology or mobility alone. It was about how they redefined what pizza brands stood for. Ghost kitchens demonstrated that a brand could be conjured digitally in hours, living entirely inside a customer's phone. Trucks proved that a brand could live entirely in the moment, unrolling only when and where the vehicle parked. Both approaches coexisted in a marketplace already filled with traditional restaurants, chains, and frozen options, further fragmenting what pizza meant to American diners. As these contrasts grew sharper, one more shift was unfolding inside kitchens themselves. Pizza wasn't only being reshaped by where it was cooked or how it reached people, it was also being redefined by what went on top of it. Plant-based toppings and health hacks. Health and plant-based trends moved from niche to mainstream on pizza menus. What might have once seemed like novelties, cauliflower crusts, vegan cheese, or meatless sausage, are now fixtures in both chain and independent shops. Pizza Today even lists vegan and plant-based options among the top menu trends for 2025, underlining how far these alternatives have moved into the spotlight. A space that once defined itself by indulgence has steadily expanded into one that accommodates a full spectrum of dietary expectation. The expansion of plant-based meats into pizza was a tipping point. Companies like Beyond Meat and Impossible Foods had already disrupted the burger category. Once consumers accepted the idea that a burger could bleed without beef, moving that innovation into pepperoni and sausage was inevitable. Chains began experimenting with plant-based pepperoni that curled and crisped like the classic pork version, creating a familiar look on the pie. Others offered crumbled sausage alternatives infused with herbs for flavor and texture. Today, customers can walk into major pizza chains and see these toppings offered alongside the traditional versions, not as limited-run novelties, but as standard menu options. Cheese presented a more complicated challenge. For many, pizza without cheese barely qualified as pizza at all. Early vegan substitutes, soy-based or heavily processed, often failed to melt, hardened strangely, or carried off-putting flavors. They existed more as placeholders than true stand-ins. But recipe improvements over the past decade changed that perception. Cashew and coconut-based cheeses now stretch and brown convincingly. Advances in food technology mean modern dairy-free mozzarella performs far closer to the real thing, often enough to pass a casual taste test. This step forward allowed pizza makers to build full vegan pies that weren't just acceptable, but satisfying, and that broadened their customer base in a lasting way. The push for alternative crusts reflected wider health and dieting trends. Cauliflower crusts became especially popular, offering a lighter profile while appealing to gluten-free eaters and ketogenic dieters alike. Almond flour, chickpea flour, and rice flour brought additional variety. Nutritional differences weren't always dramatic, but the framing mattered. These crusts were marketed as aligning with personal goals, wellness routines, or social media-friendly diet. Customers responded positively to that freedom of choice. Whether or not the benefits matched perceptions, the feeling of control resonated, and that was enough to create a new category of sales. Of course, a cultural split emerged. For decades, pizza culture celebrated excess, double cheese, stuffed crusts, and meat piled high. To some loyalists, plant-based versions looked like betrayal, stripping away what made pizza fun. Yet others embraced them, seeing the change as evolution rather than compromise. Rather than replacing tradition, new health-first pizzas added a parallel lane. Indulgent feasts on one side, adapted alternatives on the other. The coexistence reflects the broader public appetite. Some orders still stack up with pepperoni and sausage, while others highlight vegan ranch drizzle or dairy-free cheese. This duality means that menus now often read like catalogs of contrasts. A single restaurant might list a loaded meat special beside a fully vegan supreme, both presented as equal options. Families commonly split across the divide, one plant-based order next to several classic pies. Restaurants discovered that serving multiple dietary lanes avoids alienating part of a group and secures the entire order. A single vegan pie available in a lineup ensures a chain doesn't lose an entire table's business. Digital ordering helped this normalization. App users scrolling restaurant lists see vegan pizzas advertised alongside chicken wings and supreme combos. Curiosity pushes many to try just once, and if enough customers accept the result, the option sticks on the menu. This trial-through-convenience approach allowed vegan and gluten-free pizzas to escape niche shops and enter broad circulation. Today, even large chains test plant-based toppings in mainstream campaigns, knowing that visibility itself validates the category. Generational attitudes also gave the trend momentum. Younger consumers grew up with almond milk in grocery aisles, dairy-free yogurts, and protein powders marketed as standard, not alternatives. For them, vegan or keto pizzas align seamlessly with how they already eat. Posting a photo of a cauliflower crust pizza with plant-based toppings fits into the same routine as sharing a new smoothie or oat latte. In a food culture heavily shaped by digital images and identity, the normalization spreads quickly. Sharing reinforces legitimacy, and legitimacy secures demand. Independent shops capitalized on this shift even more directly. Without the volume and speed that massive chains command, local pizzerias leaned on health and plant-forward messaging as a unique selling point. They offered sourdough crusts with long fermentation times, paired vegan toppings with organic vegetables, or promoted kombucha as a side. For a certain audience, this combination was more appealing than coupons or delivery speed. By shifting the frame from indulgence toward wellness and authenticity, independents found a way to stand apart. The numbers show these aren't passing fads. By the mid-2020s, the plant-based pizza sector generated roughly $1 billion annually. While that's still small compared to the total pizza market, billion-dollar categories are not fads. They represent stable and profitable demand. The growth is especially relevant because one vegan option often means saving the entire group order, ensuring broad adoption even among meat-eating households. Chains recognize this. Menus that embrace alternatives can win whole families who might skip brands that refuse to adapt. The customization model reinforces this adaptability. One customer's pizza might feature vegan cheese and plant sausage, while another's comes with triple pork and extra mozzarella. Both pizzas move through the same kitchen, coming out side by side in the oven. Instead of fracturing the market, flexibility expands it. Chains capture more customers, independents carve out loyal followings, and diners gain options that reflect individual choices rather than one-size-fits-all indulgence. In the bigger picture, the rise of plant-based and health-focused pizza underscores how modern diners expect options. Pizza hasn't abandoned its roots. Meat-heavy supreme pies still dominate sales, but it has extended itself to accommodate new choices without retreating from tradition. This dynamic makes the industry feel wider and more adaptable, not narrower. Health-conscious pizzas occupy legitimate space alongside classics, reminding everyone that versatility is now as important as flavor. By 2025, plant-based toppings and alternative crusts aren't fringe. They're integrated into menus across the country, supported by both small shops and national brands. Instead of redefining pizza as health food outright, they broaden it, proving the category can stretch in new directions while keeping its identity intact. The result is not replacement, but coexistence. Pepperoni and dairy-free cheese sharing space in the same industry, sustained by consumers who value freedom of choice. What changed most was perception. Once unusual, vegan pepperoni and cashew cheese now sit on mainstream menus without fanfare. What once generated debate is now regarded as one part of a much larger landscape. Chains and independents alike understand this because the proof is in the sales. It's profitable, normalized, and visible everywhere. And with pizza now shaped by so many overlapping trends, indulgence, health, convenience, tradition, the way it's marketed has had to evolve just as dramatically. The next battlefield wasn't in toppings or crusts, but in how pizza caught public attention in the first place. Marketing in the age of memes. The advertising battlefield moved from TV jingles to memes, influencer clips, and viral cheese pull loops. For younger audiences, the soundtrack of pizza isn't a catchy mascot theme from a Saturday morning commercial. It's a trending TikTok audio synced to a slow-motion slice. What once required million-dollar campaigns now depends on whether users replay a few seconds of video on Instagram or TikTok. In this new economy of attention, pizza is less about scripted ads and more about whether someone's cheese stretch can loop forever on a feed. It's important to see how far the shift runs. In 2008, Domino's made headlines for its pizza tracker, a digital interface that let customers follow their order from oven to doorstep. At the time, it was revolutionary, a brand turning transparency into marketing. But in the 2020s, visibility moved again from company dashboards to consumer-controlled clips. Where the tracker once dictated the conversation, now creators and influencers do. Platforms like TikTok, YouTube, and Instagram set the pace. And pizza is constantly embedded into videos built not by corporate offices, but by individuals with smartphones. The structure of pizza promotion has flipped. A joke about pineapple toppings, a clip of frozen slices pressed into waffle makers, or someone balancing delivery boxes on a skateboard can travel farther than any ad buy. On TikTok, challenges like pizza hacks or cheese pull contests draw millions of views. YouTube channels test extreme experiments, air-frying leftover slices or building pizzas with bizarre ingredients as ongoing entertainment. Instagram turns neat squares of Detroit-style pies into visual currency, their grid-friendly geometry made for sharing. None of this resembles the polished commercials of the 1990s, but collectively it drives awareness in ways no broadcast schedule could match. For the legacy chains, this was foreign territory. Domino's might highlight delivery boxes in their ads, but it means little if audiences no longer watch television. Pizza Hut's iconic pan pizza reveal, once a slow-motion commercial staple, barely stands out in a 7-second flood of TikToks. The control of the brand story has moved outward. Customers and influencers dictate what pizza looks like, and often those depictions matter more than any official campaign. A random TikTok showing someone flipping pizza, crust first into sauce, might sell more perception of the food than a company's entire advertising budget. Mascots once central to pizza branding carry little influence now. The Noid and Pizza chorus etched themselves into 90s memory, but today's mascots aren't cartoons. They're influencers with ring lights narrating videos from kitchens and cozy apartments. Instead of scripted characters, brands partner with faces who appear authentic, casual, and unscripted, even if their clips are carefully staged. These creators laugh at uneven cheese pulls, argue over toppings, and appear like genuine enthusiasts. The illusion of normalcy outperforms polished advertising because it feels closer to everyday users. Brands began testing creator partnerships as early as the late 2010s. A 30-second Super Bowl ad once represented peak exposure. Now, mid-level influencers showcasing a Detroit-style pie on TikTok can reach equivalent audiences at a fraction of the cost. This rebalances the economics. A company doesn't need to book a studio shoot. It just seeds campaigns by encouraging creators to post pizza-focused clips with trending soundtrack. In many cases, they don't even need direct partnerships. A single clip by an independent foodie can travel further than any planned corporate message. Memes reinforce this momentum whether or not companies play along. Viral images of failed frozen pizzas or absurd topping combinations circulate endlessly, keeping pizza in the cultural conversation even when mocked. Brands join in by leaning into humor. Domino's might retweet a customer's joke about delivery timing, while Little Caesars exaggerates cheese pull videos into parody. Participation is now the signal of relevance. Even silly acknowledgement keeps a company visible on social channels. The platforms also shifted what pizza is supposed to look like. Glossy, heavily edited close-ups feel insincere. Imperfection, melted cheese sliding off, uneven toppings, leftover slices reheated in unconventional ways becomes more shareable. Amateur shots look authentic, which users trust more than staged ones. This inversion has forced marketers to abandon the classic aesthetic of perfection built for TV. Instead, showing real-life pizzas earns more engagement. The less polished the footage, the more believable the promotion. Some chains embraced parody as strategy. Limited-run stunts launched with the seeming intention of generating memes, not permanent sales. This echoes the gimmicks of 1990s oversized pizzas, but with a new metric: screenshots and shares rather than broadcast ratings. If an item sparks conversation, it becomes valuable even if it sells modestly. Absurdity pays off when it dominates feeds for a week. This shift also redistributed power. In the past, corporate mascots controlled the narrative directly. Today, attention flows through decentralized clips and conversations. A funny video of a teen cutting pizza with scissors may not mention a brand at all, yet it reinforces pizza's place in digital humor. Companies benefit indirectly by existing in a category that monopolizes shareable content. The marketing no longer points top-down, it spreads laterally across thousands of posts. Each platform develops its lane. TikTok creates micro-trends and challenges. YouTube amplifies spectacles like giant pies or unusual food collaborations. Instagram cements visual standards, rewarding clear geometric cuts and aesthetically blistered crusts. Together, they keep pizza in constant circulation. Marketing departments spend less time on polished commercials and more time designing meme-ready experiments. Cheese stretches meant to be clipped Unconventional folds or topping debates posed as direct prompts to viewers. The economics support this pivot. An ad campaign may now launch without television buys at all. A single viral post from an influencer can carry it, with algorithms amplifying the reach. By mid-2020s, companies recognized campaigns work best when they design content for replication rather than scripted delivery. The most impactful ad might consist only of someone slicing open a pizza while an audio clip loops in the background. This landscape has also introduced flashpoints in brand partnerships. Past consumer tie-ins, like celebrity-backed Bagel Bites ads in the 1990s or Tony Hawk skateboarding-themed promotions, were built for television. Modern equivalents are constructed to be shared socially. Influencers playfully sampling new pizzas on TikTok, limited edition menu items launched to maximize meme value. The difference is scale and flexibility. Past campaigns needed planned rollouts, whereas new ones can appear within a week and disappear once their momentum fades. In this structure, cost efficiency favors experimentation. Companies can test niche promotion ideas, knowing that failure costs little but success spreads fast. If a gag lands, reposts carry most of the weight. If it fizzles, attention quickly shifts elsewhere. Chains no longer interpret ad spend in traditional terms, they interpret mimetic staying power. At its core, the meme economy made pizza continually present in digital culture. Unlike the 90s, when campaigns needed consistent effort to carve presence, pizza now never leaves the feed. User-generated humor, influencer clips, and micro-trends ensure constant exposure. The product doesn't vanish between ad cycles. It remains embedded in conversation whether companies push it or not. By 2025, pizza is promoted less through carefully built identities and more through constant relevance inside digital culture. Domino, Pizza Hut, and Little Caesars no longer battle through jingles or mascots. They compete by staying shareable long enough to remain in the scroll. The crown once belonged to whoever bought the most airtime. In today's marketplace, the title goes to whoever shows up most consistently in lived digital experiences. That reality set the stage for the ultimate question. Beyond memes and marketing, which names still dominate the pizza hierarchy, and who actually holds the throne today? Who rules the pizza throne in 2025? For decades, the fight for the so-called pizza throne looked familiar. Domino, Pizza Hut, Little Caesars, and Papa John's rotated places depending on new recipes, aggressive deals, and the occasional headline-grabbing missteps. It felt like a predictable cycle, one chain rising, another slipping back without any lasting monarch. By 2025, though, the picture is different. The industry still tracks winners by sales, but power is less about one champion than a fractured set of leaders across price, convenience, authenticity, and brand identity. The clearest numerical crown belongs to Domino, Industry figures from 2024-2025 show Domino's leading U.S. pizza chains with more than $9 billion in sales, well ahead of Pizza Hut at $5.6 billion and Little Caesars at roughly $4.4 billion. That accomplishment traces back to a turning point in 2018 when Domino's officially overtook Pizza Hut after years of investment in digital ordering and delivery logistics. For a company once ridiculed as the cardboard option of the early 2000s, the turnaround was dramatic. Reformulated dough, targeted recipe upgrades, and branding campaigns built around transparency gave them credibility. Then, technology sealed the comeback. By pushing everything through user-friendly apps and delivery tracking, Domino's taught customers to think of them less as a pizza chain and more as the fastest, most reliable last-minute dinner option. Pizza Hut, in contrast, lost its firm grip on leadership after decades on top. In the 1980s and 90s, its red-roofed restaurants and arcade corners made it synonymous with family pizza nights. But as dine-in slowed and delivery became the norm, the company hesitated. Efforts to straddle both restaurant dining and delivery ended up confusing its identity. Nostalgic diners still remember stuffed crust and pan pizzas with affection, but to younger consumers, the brand feels more like legacy comfort than cultural vanguard. The company still ranks second in revenue, but its presence is now more about volume than trend-setting. Little Caesars never pretended to fight on the same cultural battlefield. Its brand is about efficiency and affordability, not atmosphere or innovation. The hot and ready model gave them their foothold. Walk in, pay a low price, and walk out immediately with food in hand. It has kept them highly relevant as the value leader, especially in an era when many customers face rising grocery and delivery costs. But leaning so heavily on price also limits its cultural presence. While consumers appreciate the value, Caesars rarely defines the conversation about pizza styles or restaurant innovations. The company excels in volume for cost-conscious families, but that lane keeps it outside of broader food culture influence. Papa John's represents persistence more than dominance. After years of leadership turmoil and fallout from its founders' controversies, few predicted it would return to stability. Yet, in the early 2020s, Papa John's modernized its flavors, leaned into varied crust styles, and ran targeted campaigns that stressed menu creativity. They regained trust and now operate comfortably in the top tier, even if they are not the primary chain that dictates direction. Their position isn't cultural authority or low-cost leadership, it's steadiness. They remain an active competitor, unwilling to disappear even if they no longer claim the spotlight. Measured strictly by revenue, Domino still rules, but numbers only tell part of the story. The throne does not look like the one Pizza Hut occupied in the 1990s, when the top three chains controlled nearly half the market by themselves. According to Pizza Today, independents make up somewhere between 40% and 60% of U.S. pizza outlets, meaning the market is far more fragmented than many assume. Domino's may sit on top of the sales charts, but the cultural currency is spread across smaller players who thrive by offering distinct experiences chains cannot match. Delivery apps deepened this shift. They removed the sharp boundary between chain loyalty and local preference. On a phone screen, Domino's is reduced to one square alongside independents, fast casual newcomers, and trendy ghost kitchen brands. The app, not the restaurant, owns customer attention. So even as Domino's moves product at unmatched scale, the sense of dominance is thinner. Customers scroll past dozens of options before deciding what to eat, and chains no longer lock households into default choices with a single ad campaign. Independents leverage this environment by leaning into regional authenticity and artisan craft. Detroit-style squares, New Haven-inspired thin crusts, and Roman-style slabs give local shops immediate appeal that large chains struggle to imitate authentically. In food-savvy cities, an independent pizzeria offering long-fermented dough and creative toppings is as likely to shape pizza culture as any national promotion. Chains dominate sheer volume, but independents guide taste trends and online food conversations. A photo of bubbling sourdough crust or a local pop-up seasonal pie often generates more attention than a coupon deal from a major brand. Frozen pizza has also carved space in the hierarchy. By 2025, freezer-out options include Detroit-inspired pans, cauliflower varieties, artisanal sourdough bases, and premium topping blends. Retail sales now reach into the billions annually, showing how far this category has traveled from its college dorm survival food reputation. Families deciding between a $25 delivery order and a $9 gourmet frozen pizza often choose the freezer option, undermining the old assumption that weeknight convenience automatically belonged to the chains. In many homes, frozen pizza has become an equal contender. So who rules the throne? On pure sales and reach, Domino's remains on top, but volume does not guarantee cultural relevance in the way it once did. Pizza Hut maintains its position through scale but no longer defines trends. Little Caesars dominates value. Papa John's has steadied itself after turbulence. Independents capture attention with craft and regional pride. Frozen brands absorb demand through grocery aisles. Delivery apps mediate nearly everyone's access. The fractured reality of 2025 defies the simplicity of past decades. Domino's commands the largest share, but it reigns over a far smaller kingdom than Pizza Hut managed in the 1990s. The throne is divided into seats of influence. Domino's rules convenience and logistics, Little Caesars rules low price, Pizza Hut clings to heritage scale, Papa John's holds a position through specialty and recovery, independents control artisanal prestige, and frozen brands push deep into households. In truth, control depends on what metric matters most: dollars, reputation, craftsmanship, or visibility. By reducing dominance to categories instead of crowns, the picture becomes clearer. Chains deliver size, independents deliver culture. Frozen delivers accessibility. Apps broker the attention. Every slice has its own authority, and together they define the industry more accurately than any single logo perched on top of a chart. Domino's may lead in sales, but the pizza throne of 2025 is less about one victor and more about how all these players balance each other in the market. That balance sets the stage for the broader reality facing pizza today. What matters now is not one company's supremacy, but the way thousands of different approaches compete and coexist. In 2025, the story of pizza is no longer about dominance, it's about diversity. Frozen options, app-borne brands, food trucks, and craft ovens all share the stage, each shaping how and where people eat. Trends that once seemed niche, like Detroit squares, vegan cheese, or cauliflower crusts, are now woven into the mainstream. In short, pizza didn't die, it diversified. And that leaves the real winner as us, the customers, with more choices than ever on the table. So tell us, what's your favorite new pizza style, or which local pizzeria do you swear by? Drop it in the comments below.